I lied to my entire family about being demoted just to see who actually cared. Only my cousin stepped up, everyone else mocked me. So I revealed the truth at my dad's birthday, and they went off the rails with trackers, career sabotage, and obsession until I got restraining orders and gave up my inheritance to escape. Upon reaching my 28th year, I informed my whole family that I had been reduced to an entry-level position at the technology firm where I'd spent 6 years. I explained that a reorganization had occurred, and I was fortunate to retain any employment whatsoever. What I withheld was the truth. I had actually just been elevated to senior director, with an income that rendered my father's surgeon earnings quite humble. The true narrative commenced 3 weeks prior during my brother Preston's birthday celebration. I overheard my uncle remarking to my father, "At least Preston possesses a legitimate profession. Finance is esteemed. Technology is merely a speculative bubble poised to burst on individuals like Jack." Jack, that's me. I had literally just guided the group that launched the innovation which expanded our customer base by 40 million. Yet, it seemed I remained the familial disappointment for engaging with a nascent company. My desire was to discern who genuinely valued me as an individual, as opposed to those who merely revered my professional designation. Consequently, I telephoned my parents and conveyed the news of my supposed downgrade during our meal. My mother's immediate response was, "So, how will you manage your living expenses now?" My father simply shook his head, stating, "I advised you to complete business school." I clarified that my remuneration had been reduced by 70%, and I had been reassigned to client assistance. I would be obligated to work on weekends and likely seek a cohabitant. Mother declared, "Do not anticipate our financial intervention. You made your own decisions." My brother Preston messaged me later that evening. A singular sentence. "It appears the favored son status is now perpetual." I shared the entire account with my sister Emma during Sunday brunch. She absorbed the narrative, then suggested, "Perhaps this indicates a shift toward a more secure profession." "Such as what?" I inquired. "Preston has connections at Goldman. Should you desire an introduction?" The sole individual whose reaction diverged was my cousin James. James is employed in construction and never pursued higher education. The family typically disregards him at gatherings, yet upon hearing my revelation, he responded, "That's difficult, friend. Do you require anything? I can lend you some funds until you regain your footing." I assured him I was fine, but he insisted on purchasing my midday meal. Over the ensuing 2 weeks, I began to introduce minor details to gauge their reactions. I informed my mother I was liquidating my automobile to conserve funds. She remarked, "Public transportation cultivates character." I mentioned to Preston that I could not contribute to our father's birthday golf excursion. He replied, "Indeed, it's probably better if you abstain this time anyway." I inquired of Emma if she knew of any hiring opportunities. She suddenly became preoccupied with nuptial preparations, but James consistently checked in. He sent me employment advertisements he discovered online, despite their complete irrelevance to my field. He offered me lodging at his residence if I lost my apartment. He even appeared at my dwelling with a six-pack after I messaged him about a challenging day. "Are those customer service individuals causing you distress?" he inquired. I felt remorseful for deceiving him, but I needed to see this through. My father's birthday dinner was held at the country club 3 weeks following my fabricated demotion. The entire extended family was present, 30 individuals, all elegantly attired and feigning mutual concern. Midway through the dinner, my aunt loudly inquired about the progress of my modest computer occupation. Before I could reply, my mother interjected, "Jack is undergoing a career transition. We are all highly supportive." The manner in which she uttered supportive unmistakably conveyed the opposite. Preston added, "Well, at least you possess employment, correct? Some individuals have nothing." It was then that I rose and tapped my water glass. "Actually, I have an announcement," I stated regarding my employment. Everyone turned to observe me. Most of them wore smirks, as if anticipating my declaration of complete termination. "I wish to express my gratitude for your assistance these past few weeks," I continued. "It truly revealed to me the essence of my family." I retrieved my mobile device and displayed the electronic mail. The one announcing my advancement to senior director. The one with the compensation that caused several jaws to drop. "I have never been demoted," I declared. "I have been promoted. I am now overseeing a team of 50. My bonus this year exceeds the annual earnings of most of you." The silence was exquisite. Preston's complexion paled. My mother's countenance contorted as if she had tasted something bitter. My father simply gazed at his plate. "But James," I stated, turning to my cousin, who appeared utterly bewildered, "you are the sole individual who demonstrated genuine concern when you believed I possessed nothing." I extended an envelope to him. Inside were 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. His team, 50-yard line. His eyes widened. "What on earth, Jack? You demonstrated affection when there was nothing to gain, I said. That holds more value than any advancement. Emma began to speak, but I interrupted her. I am finished here, I stated. James, would you care to depart? Drinks are perpetually on me. I wept myself to sleep that night. The harsh reality of my family's unpleasantness struck me all at once. And upon awakening, I noticed my phone had been inundated with dozens of messages and missed calls. The initial voicemail conveyed anger. The second was menacing. By the 10th, they were practically imploring to discuss the matter rationally. The first voicemail from Preston sent shivers down my spine. His voice dripped with malevolence as he vowed to ruin my professional standing in technology, ensuring everyone knew what a manipulative deceiver I was. I promptly deleted it, but not before preserving a copy in my cloud storage. Something told me I would require evidence later. My phone vibrated with a message from James, inquiring if I was all right after the previous night's dinner. I responded that I was fine, simply processing everything. He offered to visit, but I informed him I required some solitude for contemplation. The truth was, I needed to ascertain my family's subsequent actions. Preston messaged me to convene at a downtown coffee establishment. Against my better judgment, I consented. Upon my arrival, he was already there, his usually impeccable financial professional appearance slightly disheveled. His hand trembled with fury as he gripped his coffee cup. He alternated between rage and attempts to coerce me into a public apology. He insisted I had disgraced the family and needed to rectify the situation. I remained composed, observing his unraveling. It was then that my mother telephoned. Preston seized my phone before I could react, activating the speakerphone. Her voice permeated the small coffee shop as she pleaded with me to resolve this predicament. Then came the words that cut deeper than any blade could. She confessed she had always been ashamed of me, that I had never met her expectations. The other patrons feigned indifference as tears welled in my eyes. After I departed the coffee shop, Emma began sending me screen captures from the family group conversation. Extended family members were taking sides, most aligning with my parents. Aunts and uncles I had cherished during my upbringing were labeling me ungrateful and self-centered. Only a few distant cousins appeared to comprehend my motivations. Monday morning at work, I attempted to concentrate on my team meeting when my supervisor discreetly pulled me aside. He mentioned receiving an unusual call from someone claiming to be a concerned family member, alleging I had mental health issues that might impact my professional output. The receptionist had also noted it. My stomach churned as I realized Preston had already contacted my company's human resources department. Fortunately, my supervisor was aware my work history spoke for itself. He assured me that unless my performance deteriorated, he was unconcerned with my personal affairs. But the fact that Preston had attempted to undermine my career caused my hands to tremble with indignation. Later that week, I was at the grocery store when I noticed my mother in the parking area. She was not alone. My former girlfriend Rachel stood beside her vehicle, and they were engaged in an intense discussion. When I confronted them, my mother did not even attempt to deny it. She was endeavoring to unearth compromising information about my past relationships, anything she could utilize against me. Rachel possessed the foresight to record the conversation on her phone. She regarded me with sympathy before driving away. My mother simply stood there defiantly, as if attempting to unearth ammunition against her own son was perfectly normal conduct. The following morning, I awoke to discover Preston had uploaded old university photographs of me partying on LinkedIn, tagging my company in every single one. The photographs were not even particularly egregious, merely typical college party snapshots, but the context he provided made them appear damaging. He had composed captions about my history of deceit and pattern of manipulation. James telephoned me immediately, cautioning that Preston had been reaching out to him, inquiring about my work projects and client identities. He desired privileged information about my employment, likely to use against me somehow. James had divulged nothing, but the fact that Preston was delving so deeply concerned me. That afternoon, James sent me photographs that caused my heart to sink. Emma was departing our parents' residence with a container of my old possessions. Through the car window, I could discern childhood journals protruding from the box. James's mother had mentioned seeing Emma in my former room earlier that day. They were searching for anything they could employ against me. The 48-hour deadline was approaching when my father finally messaged me directly. His communication was concise and harsh. I had 2 days to rectify this, or I would be excluded from the inheritance. The legacy I had never valued was now being wielded over my head like a weapon. My cherished aunt, who had always sent me birthday greetings and checked in on me, suddenly sided with my parents. My mother had spun the tale to make it appear as though I was experiencing a mental breakdown, that the promotion had gone to my head. The aunt, who had celebrated my initial employment with me, now believed I was unstable. Then matters worsened. An old group message where I jested about testing people was screen captured and disseminated as proof of my manipulation. The message had pertained to a surprise gathering I was organizing, completely taken out of context. But Preston was using it to persuade mutual acquaintances that I was perilous and vindictive. 3 lunch appointments were canceled that week. Companions who had known me for years suddenly offered excuses for their unavailability. Preston's financial connections ran deep, and he was leveraging every single one. Thursday evening, I walked out to the grocery store parking area to discover my automobile vandalized. The word liar was deeply etched into the driver's side door. I am genuinely curious as to why Jack opted for such an elaborate trial instead of simply engaging in an honest dialogue with his family. Something about this entire arrangement suggests a deeper wound than just that overheard remark at Preston's birthday dinner. Security footage revealed a hooded figure, but their face was obscured. I filed a police report, but without clear identification, there was little they could accomplish. My family physician contacted me the following day, uncomfortable, but feeling compelled to inform me that my father had approached him during their golf game. He had been inquiring about indicators of mental illness, whether I had exhibited any symptoms during my checkups. The doctor maintained professional boundaries, but suggested I might consider finding a different medical practitioner to avoid awkward situations. It was then that I resolved to retain legal counsel. During our initial consultation, we discovered my parents were still listed on several of my old accounts from university, accounts I had forgotten about, but that could potentially grant them access to information I did not wish them to possess. The true shock emerged when I visited the bank. The teller, who had known me for years, inadvertently revealed that my mother had attempted to access my safety deposit box just yesterday. She had possessed an outdated power of attorney document from when I had studied abroad during college. The bank had denied her access, but the fact that she had attempted it sent shivers down my spine. 3 different family acquaintances reached out to me privately that week. They had discerned my parents' manipulation, but were too apprehensive of social repercussions to speak out publicly. One woman from my parents' congregation discreetly pulled me aside at the coffee shop to share something that altered everything. My mother had done this before to my cousin Beth a decade ago, when Beth had dared to marry someone my mother deemed beneath the family's social standing. I began to notice Preston's vehicle everywhere. He was shadowing me to client meetings, sitting in the parking lot taking photographs. When I confronted him, he drove off without a word, but I knew he was constructing some sort of case against me, though for what, I could not fathom. James's girlfriend, Maria, who worked as a paralegal, offered to assist me in meticulously documenting everything. She stated that the pattern of harassment was evident and that I needed to legally safeguard myself. We spent an evening organizing every message, voicemail, and incident into a comprehensive chronological record. My neighbor mentioned that my parents had stopped by, posing concerning questions about my lifestyle. They had insinuated I might have substance abuse issues, inquiring if she had observed any peculiar conduct or visitors at unusual hours. She had divulged nothing, but the fact that they were attempting to construct a false narrative about me was terrifying. The harassment escalated when Preston attempted to appear at my apartment at 2 o'clock in the morning. James had been sleeping on my sofa that night, apprehensive about my safety after all that had transpired. He intercepted Preston at the entrance, refusing him entry. Preston reeked of alcohol and fury, demanding to discuss family honor with me. My high school friend, Kevin, telephoned the following morning, perplexed and worried. Emma had been messaging everyone from our old social circle, inquiring if I had ever appeared unstable or exhibited signs of mental illness. She was fishing for anything that could substantiate their distorted account of my breakdown. As I sat in my apartment that night, encompassed by evidence of my family's campaign against me, I realized this was merely the genesis. They were not going to cease until they had either annihilated me or compelled me back under their dominion. But I possessed something they did not anticipate: companions who genuinely cared about me and the truth on my side. The morning after James obstructed Preston at my door, I discovered my mother had fabricated a LinkedIn profile, impersonating a technology recruiter. The profile utilized a stock image of a professional-looking woman and purported to work for a prominent executive search firm. She had been messaging my coworkers, posing pointed questions about my stability and professional output. My marketing director forwarded me the message, bewildered as to why a recruiter would be asking such personal inquiries. I immediately recognized the writing style, the same passive-aggressive tone, the same backhanded compliments disguised as concern. My mother had employed similar tactics years ago when she had alienated my father's sister from family gatherings. Back then, she had propagated rumors about my aunt's marital difficulties until the unfortunate woman ceased attending family events entirely. Rachel sent me something that caused my stomach to churn. She had recorded my mother offering her monetary compensation for any troubling anecdotes about our relationship. In the recording, my mother's voice was clear as she elucidated how they needed to safeguard the family name from my reckless conduct. The desperation in her tone revealed the extent to which she was willing to go. My mentee at work discreetly pulled me aside during our midday meal. Emma had attempted to connect with her on social media, which seemed peculiar since they had never met. The friend request was accompanied by a message inquiring if she had observed any mood fluctuations or erratic behavior from me recently. I advised her to immediately block Emma and meticulously document the interaction. Building security displayed footage from 3 o'clock in the morning the previous week. Someone had been attempting various codes at the employee entrance while wearing a baseball cap pulled low. The doorman recognized Preston's vehicle in the visitor parking area during that precise time frame. He had been endeavoring to access my workplace after hours. I presented all the documentation to the police station, hoping to file a harassment report. The officer listened patiently before explaining that familial disputes were considered civil matters unless there was a credible threat of violence. The keyed automobile, the stalking, the attempted break-ins, none of it was sufficient without concrete proof of who was responsible. James elucidated the situation to his construction crew during their lunch break. These individuals had known me for years through James, having seen me at barbecues and poker nights. They immediately rallied around me, offering to keep an eye out for Preston's vehicle when they were working jobs near my apartment. One of them summarized it perfectly: rich family problems, but I was solid in their estimation. While cleansing my automobile that weekend, I discovered something affixed to the undercarriage, a GPS tracking device, still in its retail packaging. The receipt inside indicated it had been acquired with my father's credit card at an electronics store near his office. They were literally monitoring my every movement. Beth telephoned me that evening. She had learned of my predicament through the family grapevine and wished to share her own story. A decade ago, she had become engaged to someone my mother deemed inferior to our family's social standing. My mother had sabotaged the wedding venue booking, propagated falsehoods about Beth's fiancé's non-existent criminal record, and even hired a private investigator to unearth damaging information. The relationship had not endured the onslaught. I dedicated hours to meticulously documenting each incident in detailed electronic mails to my legal counsel. Every message, every voicemail, every interaction was cataloged with timestamps and supporting evidence. Maria had emphasized that a clear paper trail would be crucial if matters escalated further. The folder of evidence grew thicker daily. Emma messaged me a lengthy, rambling communication about how I had ruined her wedding. According to her, our parents were now too distressed to concentrate on planning, and several family members were threatening not to attend due to the drama I had instigated. She attempted emotional manipulation, asserting I had destroyed her special day with my self-centeredness. My doorman discreetly pulled me aside one morning with unsettling news. My mother had approached him the previous day, attempting to persuade him that I was dangerous and unstable. She had offered him a substantial bribe to report on my visitors and daily activities. He had refused and immediately reported the incident to building management. Preston's professional facade finally crumbled during a client dinner at an upscale steakhouse. I happened to be there for a work celebration when he noticed me across the dining room. His reaction was so visceral that his clients immediately observed it. He abruptly excused himself, abandoning his bewildered dinner companions. The veneer of the impeccable financier was fracturing. My mother made one final attempt at reconciliation through my godmother. She telephoned me tearfully, imploring me to consider their olive branch. But when I requested specifics, it became evident they desired reconciliation on their terms. My apology, my resignation from my employment, my return to their neighborhood, attendance at family therapy, where they would dictate the narrative. The cost of their affection had finally been explicitly stated. My father's business associates began posing uncomfortable questions about the family situation. Country club gossip had disseminated the story of the birthday dinner confrontation, and his professional standing was suffering. The social prestige they had diligently maintained was disintegrating from within. Emma's fiancé, Tom, reached out to me privately. He had been observing my family's conduct during wedding preparations and was beginning to comprehend my meaning regarding their true nature. The demands, the manipulation, the incessant need for control, it was all becoming clear to him as nuptial preparations intensified. I realized something significant during a conversation with James. My parents could only influence individuals who were financially or socially dependent on them. Once someone achieved independence, their authority evaporated. That is why they were so desperate to compel me back under their control. Maria's investigation uncovered a crucial detail. The old power of attorney I had executed for my study abroad program in college had never been formally revoked. My parents' threats relied on this technicality, though Maria assured me it was likely unenforceable after so many years. Still, it explained how my mother had attempted to access my safety deposit box. James made a decision that profoundly moved me. My father's company had offered him a lucrative contracting opportunity, the kind that could establish his enterprise for years. He unequivocally declined it, prioritizing loyalty over monetary gain. Some things, he informed me over beverages, are simply not for sale. We spent that evening discussing how financial matters corrupted familial relationships. James had witnessed it within his own extended family. Cousins who only called when they required loans, aunts who squabbled over inheritances. The GPS tracking device still in its packaging with my father's credit card receipt inside. That's such careless work for individuals attempting to be surreptitious. It makes me wonder if they intended to be apprehended or if they are simply that negligent about concealing their activities. He had learned early that genuine relationships could not be acquired. Despite everything, I refused to exploit my parents' secrets against them. I was aware of my father's past infidelity from years ago, and my mother's prescription medication issue she believed she had concealed. I could have devastated them with what I knew, but I would not stoop to their level. Preston contradicted himself spectacularly in front of mutual acquaintances at a networking event. He asserted I had never possessed wealth, while simultaneously accusing me of ostentatiously displaying my affluence. The logical inconsistency was so apparent that several individuals exchanged knowing glances. His narrative was disintegrating. Bank statements revealed the extent of my parents' desperation. They had attempted to access my account 17 times in 1 week. Each attempt was logged and rejected by the bank's security systems. The sheer persistence was both pathetic and terrifying. Sarah, Emma's bridesmaid and my childhood friend, began screen capturing Emma's increasingly erratic messages about me. The communications displayed a pattern of escalating anger and blame. Sarah sent them to me privately with a simple note. She believed I should be aware of what was being said behind my back. My team at work rallied around me after Preston dispatched a deranged electronic mail to our chief executive officer. Without my knowledge, they drafted a joint response affirming their confidence in my leadership. They knew who I truly was, and no amount of family drama would alter that. James introduced me to his crew's families at a weekend barbecue. This was authentic community, individuals who supported one another without calculating potential gains. I felt more at ease flipping burgers with construction workers than I had ever felt at country club dinners. Tom overheard something that changed everything. My mother was speaking on the phone with Emma, instructing her to utilize the wedding to compel me back into line. The calculation in her voice, the manipulative tactics being discussed, it was all too much for him. He met me for coffee the following day to share what he had heard. Several family acquaintances reached out privately to apologize. They had initially believed my parents' version of events, but were beginning to see through the falsehoods. My mother had been very convincing at first, they admitted, but her story constantly shifted while mine remained consistent. Preston's former girlfriend contacted me with a warning. She had witnessed this behavior before when they had separated. The obsessive need for control, the inability to accept rejection. He was spiraling in the same manner, and she worried about the extent to which he might go. Beth disclosed more about my mother's pattern of control. When Beth had become engaged to someone my mother deemed socially inferior, my mother had employed similar manipulative tactics. She had sabotaged relationships, propagated lies, and utilized every available tool to maintain control. The pattern was clear and decades old. I ensured my teenage cousin was protected from being drawn into the conflict. When my mother attempted to extract information about me from him at a family gathering, I intervened and firmly instructed her to exclude the children from this matter. Some boundaries should not be crossed. My work team independently rebuffed Preston's attempts to poach our clients. He had been contacting our major accounts, suggesting they might wish to reconsider collaborating with someone so unstable. Not a single client took the bait. My professional relationships were founded on years of trust that could not be shattered by whispered falsehoods. My mother's tearful voicemail manipulations ceased to have any effect. I had stopped listening to them entirely, deleting them unheard. The emotional terrorism only functioned if I permitted it, and I had finally learned to shield myself from her strategies. Tom witnessed Emma screaming at me in a parking lot after a chance encounter. She blamed me for ruining her wedding reputation, for turning her fiancé against her, for destroying the family. Tom's countenance revealed his dawning realization as he observed her erratic conduct. He was beginning to comprehend the true nature of the family he was marrying into. Former colleagues reached out in support after Preston's LinkedIn campaign backfired. His desperate attempts to tarnish my reputation had only made him appear petty and vindictive. Individuals in the technology sector communicate, and word spread rapidly about his harassment campaign. My legal representative confirmed that the GPS tracking and fabricated profiles constituted clear harassment. The documentation required for a restraining order was nearly complete. Every message, every incident, every piece of evidence depicted a pattern of escalating harassment that no judicial authority could disregard. Emma informed acquaintances that I had sabotaged her wedding venue booking, claiming I had somehow interfered with the reservation. Tom discovered the truth. She had simply neglected to pay the deposit on time and was seeking someone to blame. The pattern of scapegoating was becoming evident to everyone around her. My father's secretary quietly informed me about immediate plans to revise the will. She had always been fond of me and believed I deserved a warning. The threat that had been hanging over my head was about to materialize. I realized with perfect clarity that I stood to forfeit nothing I genuinely valued. The inheritance, the family designation, the social connections. None of it mattered compared to my integrity and the authentic relationships I had forged. They could retain their money and their conditional affection. I possessed everything I required. Preston appeared in my office building's reception area during an important presentation. He sat there for hours, simply observing the elevators, making his presence known. Security eventually escorted him out when he declined to depart. I handled the presentation flawlessly despite knowing he was downstairs. The extended family Christmas card roster arrived at various relatives' residences. I had been conspicuously omitted, while James had been elevated to a prominent position. The trivial gesture revealed more about my parents than they realized. They were rewriting family history to exclude me. My consistent demeanor throughout the ordeal convinced the remaining skeptics. While my family's narrative constantly shifted, mine remained unchanged. Truth possesses a quality that falsehoods can never match, and people were beginning to perceive the distinction. Tom confided that he needed to postpone the wedding to address familial issues. Privately, he informed me he was reevaluating everything. He could not unsee their true selves. He could not pretend the manipulation and control were normal. The wedding might be indefinitely deferred. My parents made a final desperate attempt at reconciliation through my godmother. She telephoned me tearfully, imploring me to consider their peace offering. But when I inquired about specifics, it became evident they desired reconciliation on their terms. My apology, my resignation from my employment, my return to conformity. I politely declined, articulating my boundaries clearly and definitively. I would not apologize for disclosing the truth. I would not abandon the career I had built. I would not pretend their conditional affection was sufficient. The door would remain open if they ever desired a genuine relationship, but I would not hold my breath. Preston's reputation at his financial institution began to suffer as his conduct became known. Clients requested new bankers, uncomfortable with his volatility. The favored son's luster was rapidly diminishing. James's family officially embraced me as an honorary cousin at their family gathering. No formal declaration was necessary. I was simply included in everything, treated as one of their own. This was the essence of true family. My mother's book club acquaintances began to distance themselves after her manipulation became apparent. She had attempted to enlist them in her campaign against me, but the desperation was off-putting. Her meticulously cultivated social standing was crumbling as individuals perceived her true nature. I presented the complete chronological record of harassment to my legal counsel. The evidence was overwhelming: stalking, defamation, attempted breaking and entering, GPS tracking. Any reasonable person would discern the pattern of escalation. My father's business partner mentioned considering Preston too unstable for the advancement he had been pursuing. The family drama had infiltrated Preston's professional life in ways he had not anticipated. His actions had consequences he could not control. Emma confessed to Tom that she had always resented Jack's independence from familial wealth. The admission occurred during their prenuptial counseling session, which Tom had insisted on after witnessing the parking lot confrontation. The therapist later privately informed Tom that Emma exhibited concerning patterns of blame shifting and manipulation. Tom spent that night at his brother's apartment, processing what he had learned about the woman he had planned to marry. Documentation revealed a clear pattern of escalating harassment over 6 weeks. Maria organized everything chronologically: the voicemails, messages, stalking incidents, vandalism, fabricated profiles, and attempted break-ins. The judge would be convinced by the sheer volume and progression of evidence. Each incident built upon the last, demonstrating a family systematically attempting to destroy someone who dared to expose their true nature. Final evidence included Preston's inebriated voicemail, confessing to the vandalism. He had telephoned at 3 o'clock in the morning, slurring through an angry tirade about teaching me a lesson. His confession was explicit. He had keyed my automobile. He had been following me, and he was not going to cease until I publicly apologized. The recording would be the cornerstone of the restraining order application. James's construction crew offered to assist me in relocating to a new apartment for a fresh start. They appeared on Saturday morning with trucks and manpower, refusing to allow me to hire professional movers. As we packed boxes, they shared anecdotes about their own familial dramas, making me realize how universal these conflicts were. Money and pride destroyed relationships across all social strata. Preston appeared at my office with my father and mother for an intervention. They had convinced building security they had a scheduled meeting, but my assistant had already alerted me to their presence. I observed from the security office as they sat in the reception area, my mother clutching tissues dramatically while my father impatiently checked his timepiece. Preston paced back and forth, his financial suit wrinkled from stress. My supervisor threatened to summon law enforcement if my family did not immediately depart. He had been monitoring the situation since Preston's initial call to human resources and was not about to permit them to disrupt our workplace. Security escorted them out while my entire team observed from the windows above. Several coworkers offered support afterward, sharing their own stories of dysfunctional familial relationships. Emma blamed me for Tom's departure, posting an unhinged social media rant. The post accused me of sabotaging her happiness, of being envious of her perfect existence, of manipulating Tom against her. Companion screen captured it before deletion, sending copies to both Tom and me. Her facade had completely disintegrated, revealing the same vindictive nature as our mother. I spent that evening alone, questioning if exposing them was worth losing all family. The apartment felt vacant as I gazed at spaces where family photographs once hung. But then James messaged a photograph from the barbecue, me laughing with his crew, surrounded by individuals who accepted me without conditions. The empty frames did not matter when I possessed genuine connections. I resolved to maintain no contact despite lingering sorrow about what could have been. The decision felt final as I blocked their numbers, removed them from social media, and instructed my legal representative to handle any necessary communication. Some relationships could not be salvaged, regardless of how much we wished otherwise. The decision to move forward triggered Preston's final desperate attempt at control. He appeared at my new apartment building, having somehow discovered the address. The doorman immediately telephoned, recognizing him from the description I had provided. Preston stood outside for hours, alternating between pounding on the door and leaving rambling voicemails about familial loyalty. My family located me at James's residence through a social media post from a construction crew member. One of the individuals had posted a photograph from our poker night, tagging the location without thinking. Within an hour, 3 vehicles pulled up outside, my parents' Mercedes, Preston's BMW, and Emma's Range Rover. They demanded a family meeting, asserting they would not depart until I confronted them. My mother claimed I had destroyed the family, while I calmly enumerated their actual actions. Standing on James's porch, I recounted each incident: the stalking, the vandalism, the attempts to undermine my career, the GPS tracking device, the fabricated profiles. My mother's tears ceased as she realized I had meticulously documented everything. Her manipulative tactics were ineffective when confronted with facts. My father admitted he had altered the will, but I could earn my way back in. The offer was precisely what I had anticipated: complete submission in exchange for monetary gain. He outlined the stipulations: a public apology, my resignation from my employment, my relocation back to their neighborhood, attendance at family therapy where they would control the narrative. The price of their affection had finally been explicitly stated. James's mother stepped forward, informing my father precisely what she thought of his parenting. She had raised James alone after his father's departure, working 2 jobs to provide for them. She informed my father that even their spiritual leader would state that affection could not be purchased, that true parents supported their children unconditionally. Her words carried the weight of someone who had genuinely sacrificed for her family. I faced the choice between facile reconciliation with financial advantages or maintaining my integrity. The inheritance was substantial, sufficient to acquire a dwelling, establish a business, secure my future. All I had to do was acquiesce, participate in their charade, pretend the past 2 months had not transpired. My former self might have been enticed. I chose liberation over familial wealth, relinquishing any claim to the inheritance. My legal representative had prepared the documents in advance, anticipating this moment. I signed them on the hood of Preston's BMW while my family watched in astonishment. The pen felt light in my hand as I relinquished their final hold over me. Preston aggressively stepped toward me, but halted when James's crew rose in unison. 5 construction workers ascended from their chairs on the porch, not threatening, but clearly protective. Preston's fists clenched and unclenched as he assessed his chances. He muttered something about it not being worthwhile and retreated, his bravado evaporating. Emma's final manipulative attempt failed when Tom arrived to support me. He had been monitoring the situation through Emma's erratic messages and came to ensure she did not escalate further. Observing him standing with me instead of her shattered something within Emma. She turned on our parents, screaming that this was their fault for raising us improperly. My mother's tears were ineffective when everyone saw through the performance. She cycled through her usual tactics, sobbing, guilt-tripping, threatening, feigning chest pains. But James's mother simply shook her head, recognizing manipulation from years of dealing with challenging individuals. Even my father appeared mortified by the display. I departed with my chosen family, as my biological family imploded behind me. Preston and Emma turned on each other in the driveway, blaming one another for the failed intervention. My mother screamed at my father about his weakness. My father threatened to divorce her if she did not regain control of herself. Their perfect family facade completely shattered. In the driveway, my father quietly admitted, I might have had a point. Away from my mother's influence, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He appeared older than his years, worn down by decades of maintaining appearances. For a moment, I perceived the father he could have been if he had chosen differently. I extended a singular olive branch, informing him that when he was prepared to be authentic, he knew where to find me. The offer was genuine, but came with stipulations. Any relationship would be on my terms, founded on honesty rather than money and manipulation. He nodded silently before returning to the pandemonium in the vehicle. 3 months later, I flourished in my new city with genuine relationships. The promotion had included relocation options, and I had seized the opportunity to truly commence anew. My new apartment was more modest than the old one, but felt more like home. A postcard from James rested on my refrigerator, dispatched from a job site in Colorado. My mother sent a birthday card with just 2 words inside. I'm sorry. No return address, no telephone number, just those words in her meticulous handwriting. I held it for a prolonged moment, contemplating whether to respond. The apology felt sincere, but incomplete. I filed it away, not yet ready to open that door. 1 year later, I stood as James's best man at his wedding. The construction crew filled the wedding party, men who had demonstrated to me the true meaning of camaraderie. James had asked me months earlier, stating I was the brother he had chosen. The ceremony was held in his mother's backyard, simple but imbued with genuine affection. My parents observed from social media as James's wife posted wedding photographs. I knew they were viewing them because Emma's friend casually mentioned it. They saw me laughing with my chosen family, saw the authentic joy on my countenance. They saw what they had forfeited by prioritizing control over connection. I had lost my inheritance but gained something invaluable. The capacity to recognize true affection had been hard-won through anguish and betrayal. The fortitude to demand authentic relationships stemmed from surviving their manipulation. The wisdom to comprehend that family is not about lineage or wealth, but about who appears when you have nothing to offer but yourself. That was worth more than any trust fund. Standing at that wedding, surrounded by individuals who had proven their allegiance when it mattered, I realized I had actually triumphed. Not in the manner my family measured prosperity, but in ways that truly held significance. I had companions who had assisted me in moving without being asked. I had a chosen family who celebrated my accomplishments and supported me through adversities. I possessed integrity that could not be purchased or manipulated away. The restraining orders had been approved months ago, establishing legal boundaries where emotional ones had failed. Preston's banking career never recovered from his public breakdown. Emma's wedding to Tom never transpired. My mother's social standing crumbled as her manipulation became widely known. My father continued going through the motions of his existence, successful but hollow. Sometimes I pondered if they ever truly comprehended what they had lost. Not just a son and brother, but the opportunity to know me as I genuinely was. They had been so fixated on control that they had never perceived my actual worth. Their loss was profound, but it was also their decision. My success continued to expand, built on merit rather than connections. The team I led grew. The projects we delivered transformed the industry. I mentored young developers who reminded me of myself. Individuals from working-class backgrounds who simply needed someone to believe in them. James would visit when work brought him to town, and we would share beverages and discuss everything except family. The funds I would have inherited remained in trust funds and investment accounts I would never access. But I possessed something more valuable. The knowledge that every achievement was earned, every relationship was genuine, every success was solely mine. That truth was worth any cost. Please explore my account for additional videos and consider liking, as it provides more assistance than you might imagine.